Welcome to the Good to Give, Build a Digital Church for a Digital Age webinar. I hope you find it informative and useful, and I look forward to gathering your feedback. Okay, so a little about me. I have been working in the IT industry pretty much for all of my life. Prior to Good to Give, I worked for companies such as Computer Center and CHS and a number of large organizations. And after that, Des and I, the co-founders of Good to Give, started a large IT reseller and consultancy. After ending that business, we had a blank sheet, and one of the things we wanted to do was create a new business which made us feel like we was giving back. A business which we felt would be useful to society. So out of that was born Good to Give. We've now been running Good to Give for the last 10 years, and it's been a pleasure. We primarily focus on the third sector. So we work with over 300 charities up and around the UK. Primarily, they tend to be ethnic minority churches. And we do that because I went to a seminar a few years back. This seminar was about, it had people from the private sector presenting their businesses to churches and church leaders. And one of the gentlemen said quite openly that they didn't actually like dealing with churches and charities. And the reason for that was because he felt that they weren't organized, they didn't, they weren't very good at making decisions, and took very long to make decisions and things like that. So, you know, for Des and I, it just reaffirmed the reason why we needed to focus in this area to provide services which are not necessarily being provided well enough for this community. We are the UK's #1 provider of gift aid management for churches. That's been a title well earned. We primarily because we focus the business on gift aid originally, and now it's grown into a number of services. We the main thing that we had to pause there, because there's so many things that we do, but one of the main things that we tend to focus on is trying to increase the income of our churches, whether that be through saving you money or whether it be by generating more income through the activities that you're able to do using our systems and services. So I'm just going to cover the areas that we're going to talk about today. Why COVID-19 has changed the way we do church forever, why a digital world needs a digital church, how you can engage your members using a mobile app, how to reduce church administration using the Good to Give mobile app, and how can you use the Good to Give mobile app to help increase your fundraising and also use it as a donation tool. Okay, so clearly we're all in the boat together. COVID-19 has changed everything, and it has highlighted the weaknesses in a lot of organizations. Yes, we're talking about churches today, but in general, it's also tested the infrastructure of the organizations. And what we've found through through talking to our clients is the ones who embraced technology, the ones who were more forward thinking, those are the ones that are adapting to the COVID situation a lot better than the others. The ones who embraced technology those are the ones who are able to weather the storm and be able to provide the services to keep going as a church. So the impact of COVID, I mean, it's obvious that immediately when the lockdown started, churches were going to suffer primarily, not just from community, but also from the point of not receiving donations anymore. But the churches that were able to adapt quickly actually saw their audiences grow over time. And that's significant, because if you can do that and have the means of being able to provide a platform for donations to keep coming into your church, you've now strengthened your church in a way which you probably didn't think was possible before. And hopefully some of the churches listening to this seminar right now will be able to start that journey. Whether you had a digital means of receiving donations, a lot of churches that we've worked with over the past, it's been an area where they've had various different types of solutions, but none of them necessarily that joined up, and not something that was used regularly. Some of the other impacts in terms of the physical access to your members, I guess the social aspect that church brings, that is something that when you look at the way churches operated traditionally, you still have a lot of churches who focus primarily on the traditional ways and the bringing the community together, which is definitely something that the community needs. But there is a disconnect between the way society is going, which is more digital, is more online social. And that divide needs to be addressed with the church and how you deliver your church. It's not to say that bringing people together is no longer needed. Absolutely it is. But I think you also need to have an online strategy. This slide really just, we always like to try and have some scripture in our presentations where applicable. Now, what this is essentially saying is that, you shouldn't be trying to put a round peg in a square hole. It really doesn't work. And what you should be doing is looking at your church and saying, look, how can we embrace technology for the good and not just look at it as something that potentially has only negative aspects to bring to the church. All technology is dependent on how people use it. And if it's used well, it can enrich your church environment. So just to surmise, the idea of that we're focusing all of our efforts around as a business, Good to Give, is to bring our services to a unified platform. We took the decision long ago to focus on services rather than just an application. There's loads of applications out there that you can run your church with. There's loads of applications you can do gift aid with. But in reality, the problems that a lot of the churches that we work with suffer from is a lack of resource and the fact that you're constantly in a situation of work-life balance. You might have a full-time job and you're also doing church or volunteering. And what you need is a partner that can help you get the job done. That's what Good to Give specialize in. So we don't just provide a website for you to use and figure out for yourself. And similarly, we don't provide a digital platform which you just have to use without our assistance. So everything that you see here, our financial services, our charity, our gift aid management, charity registration, and our fundraising services, they eventually will all be brought to our digital platform. So we had to make a decision where we were going to start with our digital platform, and through consultation with our clients, the area which we felt would benefit both members and church management was streamlining the process of receiving donations, which I know most of you on this webinar today are here to find out about. So the first area that we focused on was developing the functionality to enable you to be able to bring an app to your members and allow your members to be able to make easy and focused donations. I'll explain what I mean by focus later, but focused donations to specific areas within your church. Also, being able to reduce the administration. Now, the administration aspect is something that we like to position in a particular way. And the reason why I highlight it is because you shouldn't just look at outsourcing or using a company or partner like ours as something that just saves you time in terms of administration. It's really about how you reapply that saved time to your organization. So having a digital app or using any of our services should enable you to reallocate the time and effort that was being put into those administrative services that you was providing to the church into areas which are high payoff activities. It's about reallocating those resources to frontline activities that will help the church grow, that will further your objectives. So when you're thinking about making a decision to do with the church, and it's to do with the long-term objectives of the church, and an organization like ours, where we're talking about saving you time and potentially saving you money as well, you really need to weigh up the value that is being brought in terms of how you can best reutilize your resources. So the features we've tended to focus on are related around that: organization and saving time and administration. So I just want to jump into a quick poll. I'm going to launch the poll now, and I'd be grateful if you could just feedback your thoughts. Are you able to receive donations digitally? So if you can just respond to the poll, it will give us an indication of how you are currently set up in your organization. Thank you. Great. I can see the results coming in. I will publish the results, and it is anonymous, so you're not necessarily, your choices aren't going to be shown to others in the webinar. So okay, we're nearly there. We're 40% of the way through. Okay, that's interesting. At the moment, website seems to be the primary area. Contactless, mobile app, and text. Okay. Okay, I won't spend too long on this. Got about 60% in, so I'll end the poll now, and I'll share the results. So you should be able to see the results on your screen now. Okay. Okay, so thank you for that. It's really useful. I'm going to move into the area now where we talk about the actual apps that Good to Give have developed. Okay, so we have two distinct apps that we've developed. They will be available on Android and iOS, and there's two apps which perform different functions. One is for the management team to be able to create and manage and operate the church, and the other is for your members. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you what it's like for a member when they first log into the app. Okay, so this is assuming that they have registered, they've confirmed their email address, and they are now logging into the app. Okay, so they would have clicked on their icon, and the first thing that they need to do is to register a credit card. Ideally, we always recommend using a debit card. So the first thing you need to do is register your debit card. I'm going to move through this area as quickly as possible. The CVV number is a feature which every time you make a donation, the system will ask you to enter the CVV number just to verify the card that you're using. Now, this feature can be turned off or can be saved if you want to speed up the process of donations. So you complete all of the details for your card. And once done, you save the card to the system. And then it presents the gift aid declaration. This is a quick and easy way to manage your gift aid declarations. No more having to fill in forms, send out membership forms, etc. I mean, you can still use your own membership forms if that's what you want to do, but it's all been automated on the system. Once you've finished, you're now greeted with the main dashboard. This dashboard is the primary place where all of the communication will happen between yourself and your members. Right at the top, you see the Make Donation option, which I will take you through in a moment. What you see here are the various member options. They can manage their gift aid, switch church. So if you have multiple branches, you have the option to be able to join those multiple branches. And when you go to that branch, you could go into the app, switch to that church so that you can make donations to that church. Also, one of the popular features that was requested was the ability for members to be able to run their own reports. So they can now go in, click on reports, and be able to download in Excel or PDF a report of their giving. Up and coming donations is a feature which allows the member to see donations that they have set up as repeat donations. So for example, you could set the system up to allow them to make donations to Tithe, and they would be able to see the up and coming donations in that area. Family members is a feature which allows members to scan each other's ID on the app so that the church can know which members belong to a group or a family. And at the top, you've got notification settings. That simply just allows you to be able to configure how many notifications come through and when they come through. So as we develop the app, more menu options will be made available. What we've tried to do is focus on the fundamental features that we think are going to be most useful to your church. So the next slide here talks about how a donation will be made. Now, just to highlight, one of the features we tried to achieve when developing the app is you can coexist with your existing methods of receiving donations. So for example, some of your church may not feel comfortable adopting a mobile app straight away and may want to continue using envelopes. That being the case, you can still operate your envelopes, and some of your members might be using the donation app. Now, one of the things ministers said that they wanted to maintain, or at least have the option to maintain, is the ability to control whether members have to get up and bring their donations to the altar. So we've put a feature in here, which I'll demonstrate in a moment, which forces the member to have to scan a code, which you could have up by your altar, to complete their donation. So what that means is that everybody has to get up out of their seats and go to the altar to make their donations, whether they're using the app or whether they're using envelopes. So, but that feature can also be turned off. So obviously in this time where you'll be using the app remotely, people are donating from home, you could turn that feature off so you don't have to scan a code. Okay, so this is where a member would go. They would click on the donation button. They would be shown all of the donation options that you as a management team, and I'll show you how you do that in a later slide, where you as a management team have set up the different donation options that your members will be able to see and donate to. In this case here, we've just set up one, which is for a building fund. When they click on that, it brings them to the next page. As you can see, there's a summary of what the donation goal is, what you're trying to achieve as a charity. Sometimes churches are a little bit skeptical about showing amounts, but as a charity, you're typically supposed to be quite transparent about what you're trying to do and the money that is flowing through the church. Brings you to this panel here. What you can do in this panel, as a management team, you can control what the members see at this stage. So at the moment, I've chosen to create a panel which displays a £50 option, 100, 500 and £1,000 option. Now that can be changed to whatever numbers you want, and you could add more panels if you want. You can also have the option to be able to have a custom amount, and that will allow the donor to enter in the amount that they want. I'd also draw your attention to the repeat this donation option. That option is where you would go in and it will simply give you an option for weekly, monthly, quarterly, where you can set up a donation that will be repeated at that frequency. Useful for things like tithes. Here, what I'm showing here is I'm just replicating the process of having to go to a particular location and scan a QR code. That QR code, which is the dot configuration in the middle, that could be downloaded, printed out on a normal printer and located by your altar so that when a donor needs to scan to be able to complete a donation, they can scan it. So once it's scanned, and I'll just remind you that feature can be turned off, so you don't have to scan a QR code to complete a donation. It brings you to this page, which is, it gives you the option to change the card if you want to use a different card. And then you just hit the donate button, and then you get a nice display showing you, thank you for your blessing, your donation has been received. So that's how a donation is made on the system. Now, I'm just going to focus on one thing that makes our system different to a lot of the systems that are out there currently. What we wanted to try and achieve is to create a sort of gamification, something which made making donations a bit more fun, a bit more interesting. So we developed this screen which allows you in the church to be able to use your plasmas, your LCD screens, your projectors to display real time. So that's as people are making donations, the information or the registration of, or the acknowledgement of those donations is displayed real time on this screen. So whichever donation you're focusing on at that particular time, you can log into the system at display.goodtogive.co.uk, click the one you're donating to at present, and you'll be able to see the real-time feedback from the donations coming in. What you also are able to do is to configure what is being displayed. So as you can see at the bottom, there's a glimpse of a picture underneath, and above is a black form which is covering it. All the information that you can see here, it can be removed, so you don't have to show the QR code, you don't have to show the amount that you're trying to raise for. All of that can be hidden. So as the donations come through, it will start to reveal the picture beneath. So in this case, I've hidden a picture, which is Moses parting the Red Sea. I've hidden that underneath this black screen so that as the donations come in, if the donors want to see what's underneath the black screen, the donations need to continue to come in to hit the target. When it hits the target, it displays the full picture being hidden. It could be a picture, it could be a movie clip. It's up to you. So just want to talk about how you actually create a donation project. We call it a project because if you think about the way you operate your church, you tend to have restricted funds. So you might have a fund for building. If you're, for example, trying to buy your building, you may have a fund which might be raising money for a women's missionary group. And if that's the case, then you can set up these funds within the management app, and then you can create projects which will raise money for those particular funds. So one fund can have many projects. Okay, so this panel here, when you first log into the management app, it just gives you an overview of what's happening in your church. So it tells you how many members have signed up on the mobile app, how many projects you've created, the total amount of funds across all of your projects that you've raised thus far, any notices. So a notice is just something that you have, that the system will send out if something's happening within the platform. So if you send a task to a member, So, and the member accepts the task, you'll get a notification back to say, yep, you've, that member has agreed to do that task on your behalf. I'll explain a little bit more about tasks later. So what we're doing here is we are first going to create a fund, right? So in this case here, I'm creating a fund so that we can raise money for to be able to buy our building. So I'm just going to misspell it here so that you can see how easy it is to edit it. You swipe to the left, click on the edit button, and you can just amend the item. Okay, so once you've created your building fund, the next thing you want to do is be able to create projects to raise funds, to raise money for those funds. So you click on the plus sign to be able to create your first project. You give it a name. I'm going to speed along here.
Just get it.
You've got a start date and you've got an end date. Then you set your project goal. In this case here, we're going to raise £5,000. And now we're going to select the fund that we want the money to go to. Okay, there you'll see the do you need to scan a QR code option. So you can turn that off or on per project. And then the next thing you want to do is to configure your donation slab. And the donation slab allows you to be able to control what type of donations are being made to the project that you're creating. Here I'm just adding in a few options. And once I've done that, I then have options to be able to allow a custom amount, as you can see. You can also show the donation amount on the screen, as I was talking about in the real-time display. You can configure what's being shown on there, whether you show the QR code, the goal amount, or the amount that you're trying to reach. You then also have the option to be able to upload images to the system. So you can change the image that is being revealed. The image I used was Moses parting the Red Sea, but obviously you can use, if you're perhaps trying to raise funds for a building, you might choose a picture of the building to be revealed so that eventually when all the funds have been received, it will display the full picture of the building. So you can also change the colors of the backdrop. So in my case, I used black, but you can change the colors of that and the font. You can change the QR. If you do show the QR code, you can change that size as well. You can configure what's being displayed on the screen. So in this case here, I'm going to put a basic outline of what I want to achieve, donations for our building. And once I'm happy with everything that's there, I can then save my project. You can also control what images are being displayed, what your pastors are allowed to use to display. So you may only want to use 5 or 6 different images. You can control what your pastors are able to use on a display screen. So there are a fair amount of restrictions so that you don't use something that might be copyrighted or something that you may not approve of. So once you finish, you hit submit and it saves your project. And that's how you create a donation project. So again, I just want to take a quick poll just to get a steer on what sort of drives your decision making when you're thinking about a digital solution. I'm just going to launch the poll now. Okay, this will be useful because it really does help us to shape the type of solutions that we create as a business. I mean, you know, there aren't many businesses out there that are specifically focused around the sort of smaller, ethnic minority churches or the Pentecostal churches, etc. And so in order for us to be as useful and as effective for you, the more feedback we get from our clients, the better service we can provide. So it's interesting. Some interesting results coming back, maybe halfway through. Okay, that's really useful. Anybody else want to add to the vote? We've got a few more that can come in. Give you a few more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we've got a few more coming in. Any more? Okay, we're going to end the poll now. I'm just going to share the results. So you can see there that benefit to the congregation is the clear winner there. Financial benefit and security of information is important. So while this is up, I'm going to just talk a little bit about some of these things here. So clearly, we've dedicated a specific app just for your members because we wanted to separate out the functionality that you as a church need in comparison to the needs of a member. What we didn't want to do is have an app which was over convoluted with lots of different things which weren't relevant to the audience that it was serving. So hopefully we've achieved benefit to the congregation in terms of providing something focused and easy to use. While I'm on that subject, you know, features like being able to send tasks to your members. So for example, you can create groups and then send a task to your ushers to help organize them, making their life easier. Also allowing them to be able to make notes within those tasks and make them public to the group or to keep them private to help keep themselves organized are all little features that we hope will make and add value to your congregation. Financial benefit, I mean, we've certainly spent a lot of time trying to find a cost-effective way of being able to deliver this service, as we do with all of our services. But we also factor in the fact that the point that we are a service and not an application. So backed up behind any application or any system that you use is a team of people, a team of experts in an office that you can call when you need help. And that's, you know, a significant difference when you're comparing some applications that are out there to what we do. By just being our partner and subscribing to our services, you intrinsically get the benefit of our support. And in terms of the point of data protection and security, we've been processing and managing and looking after our clients' data for over 10 years. We've never sold our clients' data. We don't intend to sell our clients' data. And we've never lost our clients' data. So, you know, Des and I, we come from a technical background. In our previous business, we designed disaster recovery solutions for national organizations. So protecting data is in our DNA. Okay, so we're just going to move on. Why use the Good to Give digital platform? Okay, so I spoke earlier about reduced administration. I mean, if you're already a client of ours and you use our envelopes, then if you moved all of your congregation over to using our digital app, then clearly you wouldn't have to scan envelopes anymore. You wouldn't have to do things like banking, you know, reconciliation. All of those things would be done through the app. If you need to update an accounting system, you'd also be able to download, in the management app, you can download comprehensive reports onto your mobile device in Excel format, such that you can just import it into your accounting application of choice. If we're doing your accounts, then the process is even easier because we have access to that information. So increased member participation. As you can see, we've tried to bring a certain amount of fun and respectful gamification to the donation process by being able to have a real-time feedback screen. What we're hoping to achieve is to create a feedback loop where the more the donors and your members donate, the more they can see the benefit of their donation affecting the church real time. It's no longer are they making donations and it's just going into, you know, an isolated donation from that person to the church. It now becomes a more communal thing where they know whether they've reached the church's expectations in terms of what the church might need to operate. And I think sometimes, you know, a bit of transparency around what the church's financial commitments are and what it actually takes to make the church live is something that, you know, in our experiences working with churches, the ones that are a bit more transparent in that regard gain a stronger commitment from their members, because the members know how important their donations are and they know where those donations are going to. This feedback loop helps to reaffirm that. So better organization of church resources. As I was speaking about before in terms of tasks and groups, within the management app, you can create all of these things. You can replicate the structure of your church within that management app very easily. And then just issue out tasks. One thing that you should be doing as a church is having an AGM. And in that annual general meeting, where you bring your trustees and you're looking at the strategic planning of your church. I mean, all churches should be looking to have a 6 to 12 month plan in terms of how they want to grow the church and grow their membership. You know, if you're not operating in that method, then you're missing a trick. You know, a lot of the churches that we see, and remember, we're working with hundreds of churches, so we get to compare the ones that are doing well and the ones that are not doing as well, and the things that the ones that are doing well are doing, and having a plan about how you want to grow your church. You know, as they say, if you visualize it, it can happen. And by doing that, you're able to achieve a better outcome. So in terms of organizing and in your AGM meetings, you can set up a task, a reoccurring task for your AGM meeting. And when people are in that meeting, you can make notes in the app real time. If you want, install the app on the tablet, so it's easier to type. You can make notes real time in the app. People can have specific tasks that they need to do. And then what they can do is, when they're going away, for example, you might need to move building. One person can go away working on that project. That project may take a couple of months to to complete. While they're working on that, they can make their own personal notes, but they could also share the progress and the milestones that they're achieving with the rest of the AGM group. So what that will do is make life easier, more transparent for you to organize your meetings and hopefully get better outcomes in the long run. And increase donations. I hope that, you know, from what we've seen and the feedback that we've had from the efforts that we've put into getting this digital platform starting point right, you should be able to see, certainly in this time, if you are not, if you've seen a dip in your donations, clearly, obviously, if you know, some churches are using different means, they might be using online banking and asking your members to make donations directly into your bank account, or using other various means. The problem with those approaches is that they're clunky, they're not interactive, they're not part of an ecosystem. And so people, you know, as a minister, you are trying to reach your organization. You're no longer in front of them, you're remotely trying to engage them. So your energy, it's a bit harder for your energy to be transmitted through the sort of digital platform. But so what you don't want to do is have your members distracted by going in and messing about with something which is a little bit clunky and has got a different purpose. By using our app and using our platform, they simply go in, they can make their donations, and as they're making the donations, they can look on the screen and they can see the donations being reaching the church real time. So even though everybody's disparate, everybody's donating from their home, they can see that others are participating just by looking at the donations coming in, and can see that you know, the energy of everybody else is contributing to achieving the goal that you've set out. Okay, so let's talk about cost. Okay, so this looks a little bit complicated, but I'm going to do my best to simplify it. We use a gateway service. So, you know, security was one of the things that you highlighted as being important to you, and it's important to us, which is why we don't try to host the app. We don't try to host the credit card services and the security behind that. So we use a partner, SagePay, which is one of the UK's largest gateway providers for e-commerce transactions. And the fees that you see there are their fees. Nothing to do with Good to Give. You know, the fees that they charge are the fees that we're displaying here right now. They happen to be the partner of choice that we've chosen that works and has been set up to work with our application. So, you know, I've had ministers try to negotiate, you know, the 12p or the various aspects. I don't have control. Good to Give don't have control over those fees. So they come up to £43 plus VAT. I mentioned the VAT. Our head of accounts is looking into whether that VAT can be claimed back. We've opened an investigation with HMRC to see if it can be categorized in the same way that a donation envelope is used to receive a donation. This is simply a digital envelope used to receive a donation. That's the argument that we're posing. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to claim back the VAT or give you instructions on how you can do that. So the £6, so you've got the £27 a month, and that will cover you for, so what you're prepaying for is 350 donations. If you're a charity that is going to be going over that on a regular basis, there is a different price point that we can discuss separately. Once you reach over the 350, then per transaction, there's a cost of 12p. So we would be monitoring that, yourselves be monitoring that to make sure that we operating in the most efficient manner financially. The PCI compliance, that is really about making sure that the system is secure and that the credit card details that are being stored on the system are being protected with the latest technology available. Payment card storage, there is a price to store the credit cards on this system. £10 per month covers you for up to 500 cards. So for most of you out there, that should suffice. So in total, you're looking around £40 odd, £43 a month. So those are the fixed costs. Now, per transaction, there is, those are the £43 covers the SagePay cost. There's another service that you need when you're making transactions using a digital platform. Now, this whole setup is very similar to whether you're collecting donations from a point of sales device or some sort of credit card scanning device. I know a number of you said that you're using contactless and things like that. So you probably are already used to paying a sort of fixed amount for a particular type of service. It may be possible to consolidate that fixed cost under one platform. So you could potentially migrate your point of sales to item that you're using across to this SagePay and merchant account facility that we're showing you here now. So per transaction, and as I said earlier, we'd encourage everybody to be using debit cards. You don't really want to be encouraging your members to be using credit cards and so on, because obviously that takes them down a particular path, managing credit, and et cetera, et cetera. We always advise that people should give from what they have. So, if they're using a debit card, then, the transaction costs for a typical transaction for, say, £10, if somebody made a £10 donation, the cost would be 10 pence. So you as a charity would receive £9.90. Okay, so that's, even though you're looking at a whole load of numbers, if you take the monthly costs aside, which if you just look at that as a cost of doing business in the same way, or cost for operating your church in the same way that your rent is a cost for operating your church, if you take that to one side, all you're really looking at is for every £10, 10 pence would be the cost for it to go through the platform. So let's look at the cost versus the benefit. So we know roughly what the costs are. And, we feel, we've tried to make this process as easy and as straightforward to make a decision about as possible. So, clearly the benefits that I've spoken about should stand out. One that I haven't mentioned is appealing to the younger generation. When they go to church, they can't wait to have an opportunity to be able to take out their mobile phone. So this gives them a good good reason to do that. As I said earlier, less time on admin, et cetera, et cetera. I think by now, you all know what the benefits would be for using a platform like ours. So what we are doing through this period is, we've mentioned 5 churches here, but if the demand is there and you really need that support as a church, what we're trying to do, especially through this period with the lockdown and churches having, we just want to do our bit in terms of the whole COVID-19 situation. We're making it free for the first 2 months from the 1st of May to be able to access the platform. What that will do is that will give you essentially a no-brainer path to being able to get onto the platform, start using it, start realizing the benefits of using it, and seeing how it can dramatically change the way that your church is operating, especially in this time right now. I mean, you know, for me, this should be the easiest decision you've ever had to make for your church. It puts one foot firmly in the direction of a digital strategy for your church. It means that you're aligning yourself with a partner that has the vision to be able to help guide your church. You know, the technology is out there, but what you want is a partner that you can trust. You know, there's lots of social media platforms and various things, and there's a lot of question marks about the trust aspect. What are they doing with our data? What is their true goal? Well, you know, Des and I set this business up as a ministry, really. You know, it's our way of being able to reach as many churches and affect as many churches as possible. You know, would we be able to reach as many people if we set up our own church? No, because we'd have one church and we would have a limited reach within that one church. But by working with churches, creating a business that works with churches, we're now able to spread our experience and our principles to multiple churches across the country. And what we really want to see is churches recognizing that we're the partner of choice when it comes to all of the services that we provide, and helping you navigate the future of your church from a digital perspective. We've already proven ourselves in terms of how churches operate traditionally. We're now providing you an opportunity to get yourself on a digital path, such that when situations, and I say when because, you know, we've had a pandemic now, the likelihood of another one happening is probably, you know, not out of the realms of possibility. And I think that if you embrace and you really use the services and the systems that I'm talking about now, rather than you having one, maybe two services a month, you can start to have, yes, you can, maybe on Sunday you might have your traditional service when everything gets back to normal, people coming into the church, etc., could still use your app in there. But then also you can have 3 or 4 different services dotted around throughout the week where people could attend them from the comforts of their home. So they don't have to rush from work to try and get to church. They can, you know, so you can still reach out to your membership, making it more convenient for them, and indeed have services that are global. You know, I've seen an article about a church which has exponentially increased their membership and their reach by going online. And that's the future that we want for you. No longer would you be confined to the boundaries of the walls that you hold your church in. You can really now start to utilize your digital identity, putting it out there so that your members can forward on to their friends and their families using WhatsApp or whatever it is, letting them know about the services that you've got coming up. And, you know, those people can then download the app and then be in a position where they can contribute to your church. There are a number of different features within the management app that I haven't even mentioned because I want to keep it simple. But the advantage you have with working with Good to Give is that the hand-holding, the training, the support is all there. We will be able to help get everything set up for you. We have a control panel that we have access to, which allows us to set up features for you so that when you log in, everything's nice and easy. You know, you're not left on your own to have to do this by yourselves. So can I just take another poll? Hopefully do bear with me. It's really important, as I explained the polls to us. I'm just going to launch this poll. So this one really is about just getting feedback, and it might help you to think about it yourself. You as a church will need to do your own marketing to your congregation to help them see the vision that you see, to see how going down this path doesn't have to be, part of Revelations or some sort of slippery slope down to, down a path. It's really about how it's used and the safety and the comfort that you have working with a partner like Good to Give, which is a ministry just like yours. Our goals are not too dissimilar to the goals that you have as your church. So that hopefully should, ease your congregations, anybody who might be apprehensive about, embracing the technology. Okay, so yeah, I can see there's some more still coming in. I mean, this is, I'm going to give you a little bit of time on this one because I know a lot of people will be thinking to themselves, they'll be thinking about some of those older generation and thinking perhaps they wouldn't be, as savvy. My mum's mid-80s right now, and I'm in the process of setting her up on WhatsApp because during the lockdown, she can't, speak to her family, etc., etc. She's in good spirits, but every other day she's calling me up. What's happening with the WhatsApp? WhatsApp, she calls it. No, what she call it? WhatsApp. So I think you'd be surprised sometimes how the older generation, once they see other people and they're given the training and support, how ready they are to embrace technology. Okay, I've had a real good response from this one. I'm just going to end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I'm going to share the results now. So yeah, half, sort of to quarter to half of the congregation is the leader there, and that's pretty much where we see it. And what we're expecting is over time, when parts of the congregation who aren't using the digital app, eventually they will be interested to know what's happening and what are the others doing, and hopefully that will spread throughout your organization. But also it depends on the mix of your congregation. You may have more older people who may not even have a phone, etc. So thank you for completing that. Okay, so let me just address some frequently asked questions. We're near the end, so do stick with it. We're near the end. How do we ensure that the Good to Give app is secure? Well, as I mentioned earlier, we work with professional partners, the partner that we use to develop the app. And we do a lot of in-house development ourselves in terms of the main systems that you use for Good to Give if you're a client of ours, our microsite. But for this particular app, because of the requirements for it to be placed on the Apple Play Store or the the Apple Store or the Android Play Store, which the app is not currently on there because we're in our beta test phase. So what we're trying to do is get a group of clients using the app where they can feed back to us things which we feel will be useful and beneficial to other churches. We can make those changes, and then when we're ready, publish those final apps when we come out of beta and publish those final apps in those Play Stores. But in order for us to do that, the apps have to be developed to a specific security standard. And we've used a company which has developed over 400 applications, 4,000 websites and over 2,500 mobile systems throughout their career. So, you know, we've used an experienced partner to develop it. Plus, as I said, we're partnering with SagePay to make sure that everything's secure. How do we support organizations using our app? As I said, you know, we're the sort of organizations you could pick up the phone and call us. I mean, you know, clients call us on the weekends as well. Obviously, we have limited support on the weekends, but, you know, if it's not unusual for support calls to be happening on the weekends where clients need that. But generally, we focus on between working hours. How is the app being has the app been successfully tested by users? We've ran an internal pilot where a lot of testing has been done internally with a trusted partner of ours, a church with a small number of members, but we haven't brought it out into the wider public for them to be able to use. So has it been tested? Yes. Are we confident in it? Yes. But you know, now's the time to broaden it out to people like yourselves. Is there a minimum contract period? Good question. No, there's no tie-in. So, you know, a month's notice and you could be out of the commitment. So that for us was an important feature because, you know, if you haven't got, for example, enough congregation making donations on the system, and you feel like, you know, you want to put the application down for a few months or whatever until you get back into a position where you've got the volume of donations coming in, then, you know, you can do that. So we're trying to make this as easy for you to come on board as possible. Any questions before my last poll? Now, you can you could either talk and I can hear you, or you can, in the chat, you can type your questions and Katrina will help.
Yep. We have a few questions in the chat, Corey. So the first one is, can management view the donors via the app?
Yes, so when you're in your management app, you can see all of your members, all of the donations that have happened. You can see, you know, you've got complete visibility of the transactions, not so much the transactions, but the donations that have been coming in for what projects. You can break it down by projects. You can filter it if you want by financial year. So if your accountant comes to you and says, you know, what were the donations and transactions for this particular financial year, you can go in there and do all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. We have another one, the QR code that can be displayed at the altar. What will members scan with? So
if their mobile phone just needs to have a camera, which the majority of mobile phones these days have. So all they need to do when they go to operate it, it will just come up, allow the app to use your camera. You click allow. Once you've done that, you don't need to do that again. And it will just take a picture of the QR code or scan the QR code through the camera, and that's it.
Yeah. Going back to the previous question, Roy Bello has added to that. He says he means donors' names. So can they see donors' names in the app?
Yeah. So you can see, yes, you can see a transactional history of the showing which donors made what donations.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And Peter is asking, how many third-party service providers do we use?
For delivery of this service, there's, to be honest, it's one service provider because the merchant, Elavon, which is a well-known merchant, they have bought SagePay. So that's under one house, which is nice because if I can explain how the process would work, we would provide you a document which would tell you everything you need. Typical sort of money laundering type exercise where you need to just confirm identities of the key people in your organization and that sort of stuff. We'll provide you a document with everything you need to prepare. Then we'll speak to SagePay. SagePay will call you within 2 hours and they'll take you through an online, over the phone application. So, there's nothing to sign. There's nothing complicated like that. And once you've gone through that process, they'll be able to set you up not only on the gateway, but also with a merchant account. So I know some clients may have a merchant account, but the likelihood is if you're using a point of sales tool, it's not going to be the same sort of merchant account that you would need. You need an e-commerce merchant account, which is different. So, our recommendation is just let us set you up via the SagePay connection, and then that way there's no ambiguity. We know it works, it's tested, and yeah.
Another question from Peter: can we connect app to church website?
When you say the app to the church website, I'm trying to visualize a situation where, we do have a sort of, I'm assuming you mean, can people make a donation from your website somehow into the app?
Sorry, I just want to cut in there. It's not so much for the financial aspect, for just for events, and you mentioned marketing as well. So just say you want to market our events via the app to the website, so people can get the information from the website as well as the app. So it basically mirrors the same information.
Okay, all right. So in the events feature, when you create an event in the app, it gives you an option to share it. So you can get a URL which you can share out to. Sorry, it's not actually a URL. It's an image and with some text which you can use to share. There isn't like a sort of URL where you can on your website put the link back to the same thing that you're seeing on your mobile app. So in simplicity, no, there isn't a direct link. You would have to create your event on your website and create the same event through the mobile app. Which, but to be honest, it's a good question, because in order to do that in the way that you described, or to make it more
integrated,
and user-friendly, we would actually have to create a hosting page, so that when you create the event on the app, it would, in the same way that you can log into the display.goodtogive.co.uk to see your donation page, you could have a similar thing which would have all of your events on it. But we didn't want to go down that path and develop that because it would have taken obviously more cost and so on. So unless we felt clients really wanted it. So it's on our sort of list of things, and the more feedback like what you're giving here now, and others feel the need for that, then that's certainly something that we could look to implement on our go live release.
Yeah, just to add that, sorry, because obviously most churches have websites first. That was their first entry into the digital world, having websites. Now the mobile apps are coming. It's not so much a replacement, but it's obviously because I suppose there's a transitional period between websites and apps, or you can use them interactively. So I'm thinking, because most churches have apps, websites. Therefore, if you want to promote the app as well, then we need to make sure that people who use the website can say, oh, yes, this church has this mobile app facility. So we need to promote that on the website. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, you can certainly do that. So let me just explain how that would work. In order for somebody to join your app, you could promote the app. You could have the logo and say, we have a donation app. Please download it, etc., etc. We won't be able to do that in this beta test phase because it's not published on the app stores. But once it's published on the app stores, then you'll be able to go to your mobile, go to your website. You can have that link, which will, if if they're on their desktop, it will actually, and they're already logged into, say they're using Google Chrome and they're already logged into it, it will come up and you'll be able to, from the web browser, install the app directly onto your phone without even having to pick up your phone. So all of that typical functionality that you get from the, for example, the Android store, you'd be able to do that from your website. So that, yes. And then your church would have a unique number. So in order for a member to be able to join your church, I'll just explain a little bit more about that join up process. They would need your registration number to put in, and when you get that request come through to you, so people can't just join your church. You get the request and you can choose whether they can join your church as a member or as a visitor. So you can have that distinction. And then once you've accepted that, they get a notification back saying they've been accepted.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, because obviously we have to make our own investigations for the members ourselves. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You don't just want anybody to become a member.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? I can see a lot of talking from others. I'm not sure whether they're talking to you, Katrina, or...
There's nothing else in the chat.
Okay. All right. So we're moving on from there. My last poll, please do forgive me for being Mr. Poll, but it's always interesting. Right. So this final one, please do go easy on me on this one here. A lot, good to give us spent the last 18 months in development of this. So, how, okay, well, so far we've got 100% on very likely. Okay, this is encouraging. Thank you very much. And also, if it's something that you don't feel is something that would suit your purposes, do really, I really would like feedback. You don't have to, you can chat to Katrina, just send a chat message directly to Katrina explaining what you feel might not be, the features or, what you're looking for. Because that, again, our mission as a company is to be the best partner that we can be for organizations like yourself, and we can only do that with your help. So the more you help us shape our business, and one conversation I had with a minister where it was really encouraging for us is he said, there are not many companies that he could think of, if any at all, that he could have such a close relationship with, that understood his church and understood the sort of challenges that he as a minister faced, and was able to have, get feedback to the organization to actually make a difference in terms of what that organization does. Okay, I think we're nearly there. Got a good response on that. I'm going to end the poll now, and I'm going to share the results. So we got one not likely, somewhat likely, two, and the majority neck and neck with likely and very likely. So I consider that a win, and I'm going to stop sharing there now. And we're just going to, last slide. If you're interested, the link will be made available to you. There will be further communication via email as well. So please do get involved, register your interest for the BCS program, and we'll be following up with a call. I hope this has been useful, and I hope that you decide to join us on your digital journey and choose Good to Give as your partner of choice for your church. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day and stay safe.